Hello, my name is Emma Reed, and I am an 8th grade math teacher. And this video is about how to use the Desmos graphing calculator to make interventions to support students so that they have kind of a visual of different things they might be learning on a graph. So the Desmos lesson creator is at teacher.desmos.com, and the Desmos graphing calculator is at desmos.com. And you just click graphing calculator, and you may have taught students to use this before when they're doing graphing of especially maybe linear functions if you're teaching 8th grade, but I wanted you to see that this is also a really useful place to create some kind of interactive manipulatives specific to what students might be learning in a certain lesson. So this is something I created, a really basic version just to show you what you can do. Where I took the sets of ordered pairs that students were responsible for ordering from closest together to farthest apart, and I just created like a movable line so that students who could use the help visualizing would have a place to go. So I'm just going to show you how you would create something like this and then how you can share it with students. So I'll start at the most basic level here. You can click right here to give a title to your graph. So graph example is what I'll call mine. And then it'll continue to save automatically as you're working on it. And then over here you have different options for what you can add to the graph. You can add an expression, you can add a note, you can add a table. I'm not going to go into folders, that's kind of like the next level up, and you can add an image. So here, let's say I just wanted to graph a line. I can write in my line and it will graph it, and then I can change the color of my line by clicking the gear symbol and click right here, change the color. I can make it dotted or solid, and then if I'm interacting with it and I need it to turn off and on, I can always, once I'm done editing, just click here to click it on and off. Something else that's really cool for when you're teaching linear relationships is to show the table that goes along with the line, and you do that again by clicking the gear symbol, and then let me undo what I did. I just typed in my equation originally, and then I clicked the gear symbol, and you can see there's a little convert to table button. There's also a duplicate button in case I wanted to have a version with the equation and a version with the table. You can also click the points themselves so students can see the connection here between the different representations of a linear relationship, the equation, the table, and the graph with the ordered pairs connecting to the table. So those are just some really nice basic things that you can do in the graphing calculator. And then let's say I wanted students to just see this screen as soon as they log into the graphing calculator. I would just click over here, share your graph, and then I can export it as an image if I wanted to, or I can copy this link and embed it on a website or add it to Google Classroom, etc. Something else that's really good to know and is really helpful is if you happen to use the Desmos lesson creator at teacher.desmos.com and you wanted this graph in an activity, if you just copy this link and you're inserting a graph option to the lesson, you can just paste the link and the graph you already created will show up there. That can be helpful because the graph in the lesson creator is kind of small. So just something to know, you can always import this into a lesson later. So now to get into what I did to create the interactive site for finding the distance that I showed earlier, I'll start fresh with a new screen. So my goal for creating that was just for students to be able to see the changing distances between ordered pairs. So if you want a line segment, I would suggest just copying the link that I used, and I'll put that in the description to this video, or even Googling Desmos line segments. But because it's pretty straightforward, I am going to show you how to create movable points on Desmos. So the first thing you would do is create an ordered pair. I'm just going to use x1, y1. And then x1, y1. And then when you add a slider, that's what makes it movable. So I'm going to say all. And then the slider means that students will be able to move this point around. So I'm going to say label, so it'll show the x and y values for the point. And then you can choose whatever range you want students to work with. So for the ordered pairs that they were given in the activity they had to use, I think they needed from -12 to 12 on the x and the y axis. And then here's the really important thing, which is the step. If you don't put a step in, then you're going to end up with all of these like very small increments. And in most cases, that's not that helpful. So I usually just do a step of 1. You could also do a step of a half. So now you can see the x values are all nice. They're jumping neatly from one point to the next. But I need to do the same thing with the y. There we go. And now when we move our points around, you can see that we have like nice whole numbers for students to look at as they're plotting their points. And I'm just going to duplicate the point that we used before, but instead of using x1, y1, I'll use x2, y2. And we want the sliders again. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give a range and the domain and range. And I'm going to do a step of 1. All right, there we go, and a label. And now we have 2 movable points, and we can change the color if we'd like by clicking the gear. So we have one that's black and one that's, let's say, purple. And then the other really nice thing is that you can add an image. So you can make an image that's going to go behind your graph if you want, or like I did in my example from before, you can overlay the image. So either whatever method you're using, you just go to the little plus, add item, insert image, and then you see it defaults to being behind the graph. And if you want it to be in front of the graph, you just hit the gear again. You can make it draggable, and you can uncheck place behind the graph if you want it to show up in front. So I did this for my example so that students could see the points that they were working with before. And then they can just move the points around. And then if you were giving this to students without any directions separately, you can add directions by clicking the plus and recording a note here with directions so that students know what they should be working on in the Desmos screen. I hope this is a little bit of a helpful introduction to how to create something interactive in the Desmos graphing calculator. Enjoy your day.